resume from three angles. First of all, as an advertisement of yourself, designing the resume from an employer's needs, and just a few of the key design elements to kind of get you started. So the resume itself should be a formal overview of yourself. It is the blueprint. It is a document that is standing in for you. The first introduction to you is most likely, when you're seeking a job, going to be a resume. So recognize that it is, going to be a stand-in for you. Now, the negative aspect of this, and this is just a fact that has been picked up from interviewing a lot of employers who deal with resumes, is that the employer is going to spend like 10 seconds on your resume. Now, that's 10 seconds while you are going to spend hours and hours creating and sweating over your resume, and as your resume changes, as your careers evolve. So this seems unfair. But truthfully, it's just a part of the reality of this important document and how urgent it is to create something that could make a very quick impression on somebody. A great resume is never going to get you the job, but a bad resume can prevent you from landing it. So keep that in mind. Those are just some points to kind of point out the urgency and the seriousness of this document. So the resume sort of has two purposes. The first is to create an interest in the employer when you send it, so they're going to want to then invite you in for an interview. The second is when you walk into the room, or if you land the job and during these Zoom days, or this is sort of a new reality, whatever it is, the employer is going to have the resume ahead of you, and they are usually going to be looking at it when you meet them. Now, just as a point, when you go for an interview, if it's a live interview, always have an extra copy of your resume. They'll most likely have their own. It'll be on the screen in front of them, or they'll print it out, but just kind of show some preparation by walking in and having one to hand them. So those are the two purposes: to kind of get the interview, and as you are being interviewed, they will also give a further and closer examination of your resume. So how do you begin? How do you get started with this all-important document? Well, I don't mean to be crude, but puke it out. Brainstorm. Start off with a brainstorming session. I want you to, whether you work on paper and have a blank piece of paper in front of you, or you're good with working in front of your screen, start with a blank screen and just brainstorm. Bring up everything about yourself, not just your jobs, but who are you? What have you done? Have you done any volunteering? Have you been a counselor at a camp? Are you good with computers? Do you have good communication skills? Are you into music or sports? Have you served in the military? Are you a cheerleader? All of these things will help inform somebody of who you are. They may seem unimportant to you, or insignificant, or don't speak of your work experience, but they are. They're part of the overall package that somebody wants to see. So bring all of that to the paper. The most important thing, once you start to devise your resume, once you sort of get it out, is trying to create from the perspective of the employer. You need to say to the employer, I have the experience that you're looking for. That's what you're trying to do. That's what you're trying to convince them of. And of course, you don't have the exact job that they want you to have. Nobody does. Nobody who's applying for a job has the exact experience that the employer is looking for. Otherwise, they would already be in that job, or they wouldn't be looking for the job that they're looking for. So the employer is going to be looking at your past experiences and seeing if you were able to apply what you've done to what they're looking for. And this is a skill. You need to basically adjust your past work and educational experience to emphasize the needs the employer is looking for. This is work. This takes work, and it takes smart, because what you're trying to do is put yourself in the employer's shoes. You are trying to understand what they're looking for. And if they can see in your resume that you are showing that you understand what they're looking for, they're going to take notice. They're going to take interest. I've interviewed many, many people that deal with accepting resumes, and they say that's what they like to see. They like to see that someone who has researched the company, who has thought about what the company is looking for, and can kind of show their resume and and then their interview skills, which we could talk about at some future date. But can they try to understand the company that they're applying for? Therefore, you are never just going to be applying for one job. You should have in your computer files an entire folder of different resumes. And you should kind of be tweaking your standard resume to apply for jobs. You might be applying someday for a management position. Well, you want to show that in your past experience you've done, even if you haven't been a manager, you have done some of the skills. You've shown some of the skills. Maybe you've worked with money. Maybe you have set schedules, things like that. So if you were applying for a manager position, you would sort of tweak your past history to show that management skills. If you were applying for a marketing job, you can show that perhaps you had influence, or you could at least say you've had influence, or say you've worked with a past employer's, anything from their social media to design to anything like that. So perhaps if you're applying for a marketing job, you bring up your computer skills. You bring up the fact that have your own website or things like that. These are the ways in which you kind of design and try to sharpen your resume to show what an employer's needs are. You're trying to picture the kind of person that would be perfect for their position. You want to bring out what the employer wants to see. Now, this seems like a contradiction because I started off saying that your resume is an advertisement of yourself, and it very much is. And now I'm saying you should be manipulating that resume to kind of interest the employer and perhaps manipulate your experiences into what they want to see. And to tell you the truth, that is true also. So your resume is sort of standing in for both of these positions. By the way, as I speak, if anybody has any questions, just take yourself off mute and interrupt me if there's anything else you'd like me to speak about or kind of speak further on. So, as I said, you should have many different versions of your resume. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is how should it look? There are a ton of templates out there. All you have to do is Google resumes, and you will see that there is a whole world of resume making tools and just designs for you to pluck from. I think a lot of them are really bad. I think a lot of them are really good. I think a lot of them are cluttered. The challenge is try to find one that represents you. Don't choose the first one because there are lots of different ones. And here's a few examples. This one I thought was pretty interesting because this is a high school student. You see here, there's no work experience, and this person doesn't try to pretend that there's work experience. Instead, what this student does is brings out their education, their general skills, their achievements. Now, I'm not going to say this is not an impressive high school student. This is obviously, I think, a foreign student who understands Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and is pretty good with their German. But this is a nice looking format and a nice resume for someone who has no work experience. So notice that. At this stage in the game, if you don't have a lot of work experience, or your work experience is mostly retail, let's say, I don't know, you've worked at Pizza Hut and Walmart, then the things that you want to bring forth, that you want to open up early instead of general skills, are education. And perhaps instead of general skills, you have your education and you put the courses that you've taken or the degrees that you've gotten, things like that. This is where I'm talking about trying to find the right resume to fit your needs, your look. This is pretty funny because this is Elon Musk's resume. I don't know if he did this as an exercise or he did this for a resume making group, but it's pretty cool to see how someone who has done an incredible lifelong career can encompass their entire career into a single page document. And as I'm going to say later, your document does need to be 1 page long. But this is a really efficient resume for someone with a lot of work experience. Here's some skills and competencies. Some people like this area. I find these, somewhat important. Uh, Achievements and certificates and interests. Kind of a cool resume. This resume I like to show, this is a student of mine at UNO. This was a graduate class, but this is a resume that was not created using any format. This is just a student with really strong design background and created a resume that has a strong design, a sense of design. I think this is really beautiful to look at, and yet is just straightforward. Here's my education, here have been my jobs, and she does a good job in the bottom. Here's her Wordspace website, here's her LinkedIn page, and here's her social media page, and the ways those are incorporated. So those are some examples of both templates that you could work from or creating your own. So as I said earlier, these are going to be some of the few points, and there are many more points to a resume, but here are some of the main ideas that I want you to kind of work on. Let your resume only be 1 page. I know that now that we're looking at things on a screen and that most of our emails our resumes are going to be emailed, it seems like things can go onto a second page without prejudice. But the truth is that employers want that 1 page document. This is still a standard in the workplace. So get yourself to 1 page after years and years. I mean, we just looked at Elon Musk, who's done, radical, crazy things with, honorary degrees, and his was able to fit onto 1 page. Divide your information into categories, and we looked at some different types of categories. Now, the most straightforward categories are going to be things like work experience and education. But depending on who you are and what you've done, these do not have to be, sorry about that, these do not have to be the same categories for every resume. If you have honors and awards, if you've received grants, if you have a lot of extracurricular activities, create those resumes. Here are some different ones. So this one, John Doe, it's just a John Doe resume. Here's work experience in education. But the next one, as you can see, they've changed theirs a great deal. Instead of things like skills and honors and awards, this person is instead focused on their IT skills. This is someone who wants to be a data analyst, and we see that from the top of the resume. And seeking this data analyst position, this person has just kind of brought forth the IT skills right at the top, even before their work experience, even before their education. So there really are no rules in what category has to go first. Some people think it has to be education at top, then work experience. No. This person, for example, as we're looking at now, is looking for a data position and has all these skills and wants to show that right at the top. So this to me is a really interesting resume, and this person does a great job at kind of not bothering with a lot of the categories that are sort of standards. This one too is someone who is right now a secondary social studies teacher and wants to continue to be a teacher. So right at the top is teaching experience. Sorry, every time I move my mouse, this sometimes happens. So teaching experience, then volunteer experience. This is not someone with a great deal of job history. This person has one year's worth of work as a social studies teacher at Geneseo High School. So look at what this person has done. Underneath their high school experience, they've put their volunteer experience, and then their education, and then their certificates. That's kind of great. That is the focus of this resume. I mean, they have on the left-hand side, it's nicely organized. Here's their contact information, languages, which is very cool and showing that this person has second languages, and interests. But I find this sort of stuff is less important, and doesn't take up as much real estate. The focus of this resume is this person's teaching experience, their volunteer experience, and their certificates. So it's kind of a great resume. I admire it. Consider writing at the very top of your resume, and I'm just going to kind of go back, and you'll see that each one of these resumes has a little paragraph at the top. And that paragraph is sometimes more focused than others. John Doe is a business development manager, professional business developer with more than 4 years of experience in business development processes. This person is wants to be a data analyst, so their paragraph is focused specifically on data analysis. This one is a person who wants to continue a teaching career, and they're focused on the teaching career. Now, this next one is a little bit more broad. Hardworking, passionate, secondary social studies teacher focused on creating positive environments. It's a little bit broader, incorporates interdisciplinary knowledge into classroom. I know that they're being specific about the classroom, but they're being a little bit widespread in what they're doing. They're not saying, I specifically want this type of position. Try to be as focused as you can be in this area if you would like to include this in your resume, if you want to have a little commercial at the top of your resume. Again, I'm going to go back to these other ones. As you see, they've done. This is a nice thing. It does not have to be there, but many people are doing it now. What I like less is when they don't say anything. You know, when they just say passionate worker, good at, finding solutions to problems and seeking a career in which they can apply themselves. I prefer instead that to see a resume where someone is sort of focused. And you can change this per resume. I've talked about earlier how you should be changing your resume for each and every, practically for each and every job you're searching for. So if you're applying for a management position, create something in here that says, this is who I am and this is why I'm seeking a management position. If you're seeking to work in marketing, say something about marketing right at the top. I like this sentence if it says something, this sort of introductory paragraph. I like it less when it doesn't say anything, when a person just kind of says they're hardworking and passionate and looking for a career they could apply themselves to. I think that employers want to see that a lot less than something that speaks to them directly. So when I use the word bullets, I'm talking about, going back to this resume, bullets. These are bullet points. Underneath each job is a list of bullet points. And these bullet points should not be full sentences. They are details that show exactly what it is you accomplished and you did in each one of your jobs. Don't use the word I. I'll talk about that in a second. And start with active verbs, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So, taking this person, this is an architect's resume. They developed and executed online social media and print marketing strategies. They participated in all phases. They produced drawings. They created 3D models. Notice how none of these bullet points say, I did this. They don't say, my duties included. They are not vague and they are not I-oriented. Instead, they've taken the experience and they've turned it into an action verb. And that's what employers want to see in your bullet points. Can you translate what you've done and begin that way with an action verb? So Know to pronouns, a pronoun like I. It's understood that you're speaking about yourself. And start your bullets with a verb that conveys action and accomplishment. Some verbs work better than others. So choose a verb that says precisely what you've done. You know, if you were going to work in marketing, don't say worked on store advertising. Instead, use something exciting. You revised and streamlined the business's social media presence. Revised and streamlined is great. Streamlined is maybe a little bit jargonistic, but revised means that you took something that already existed and you redid it, you refined it. This is what I mean by action verbs. And I don't have the ability to just post something, but if anybody wants I have multiple sheets of action verbs and I'll send it to you as a PDF file. So if you just shoot me an email, I'd be happy to get you that list of action verbs and it'll help you build your resumes. Put everything in reverse chronological order. All that means is the most recent work at the top. So in your job experience, put your most recent job at the top, your last job under that, the job before that under that. So reverse chronological order. I've seen that mistake made in student resumes. Finally, the last thing I kind of want to sum up at this stage, I realize this is sort of a quick introductory assault of approach to thinking about resumes, but be confident and sell yourself. As I said at the beginning, this is an important document. This is going to be your first step to getting the job. See if you can create a document that shows you are confident. Don't be arrogant, but don't hold back. Don't be shy. Say again who you are. If you were you know, the lead on your sports team, if you have a 4.0 grade point average or even a 3.8 grade point average, if you have accomplishments, show it. And when I say be confident, a lot of people are plucking these resumes that have things like, you know, they have levels to show like, you know, I'm 90% great uh, at multitasking, but I'm only 70% good at communication skills. Don't ever put anything showing yourself as anything but strong. I mean, you know, we saw that first resume where where the student had their only 50% grade at German, but they showed that they are fluent in 3 other languages. You could be a little bit honest, but exude confidence. No one is hiring someone that puts themselves, oh, I'm only 50% or 40% or I'm weak with my communication skills. Don't be so honest. Put confidence over honesty. Once you finish your resume, you are not done. You know, just like if you've ever had me for any class, I've said, you know, put your document away and revisit the next day, proofread it. You are not going to see the mistakes that you've made. So put your resume away. Don't ever write a resume and that day send it out. You need to look at it the next morning for proofreadings. This is a serious document. Have your professors, have colleagues, have your friends, have your family members, have people look at your resume. You need the extra eyes. And ask questions of people that you're having looking at it. Do I come across as competent? I'm applying for a management position. Does this look like a good resume for a management position? Don't be shy about asking specific questions of those who are examining your document. As I said earlier, most of your employers are going to be accepting your resumes via email, or they're going to ask you to upload them. Always send a PDF file. Don't ever send a Microsoft Word file. Believe me. The problem is sometimes the translations from a PC to a Word to a Mac, and things are being left out. I've had many people send me emailed resumes and I ask my students to send me Word files so I could edit them, but they look funky. They say, like, at the top of the resume, it'll say, put your name here. Whereas on your end, you've put your name in, and on my end, I'm not seeing it. That's a Word translation file, but if you send a PDF, if you send an Adobe Photoshop file, people are always going to see what you're seeing. So make sure you're always sending a PDF. Finally, I just want to say, if you need help with your resume and you would like me to take a look, send it to me. Don't be shy. Just don't send me your first draft. Send me something that you've now worked on it and you're ready to show it to me. But send it to me at any time. You could send it to me now that you're a student. Once you graduate, you're out there working in the world. If you want that resource, take advantage of it. I will always be there to help you. This is a serious document. I take it seriously. Your employers are always going to take it seriously, and you should take it seriously. So at this point, guys, I'm sorry, I got muted there. At this point, guys, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask away.